I want to start with Arch Manning. There's nowhere else to start in college football this year. We've seen glimpses of him. We've seen him used in small doses. We've seen him fill in when Quinn Ewers was hurt. But this is the Arch Manning show now in Austin. He's waited his time. He is the starting quarterback. Expectations sky high because of that last name and because of, I think, the athleticism we've seen when he's been in. But he had his normal ups and downs being a young, inexperienced quarterback. So is he going to be good? Is he going to be as advertised, Joshua? What are you expecting out of Arch?
Okay, so I guess the first question I would ask anybody who is asking me this question is, how good do we think he is, right? Like, that's the starting point for, is he as advertised? Well, how is he being advertised? Because if you're telling me that he's going to be, one of the I would say top 15 starting quarterbacks in college football, yes, he's as advertised. Is Arch Manning going to win a Heisman? Is that what we're advertising? Because I'm not ready to get there. I'm just not quite ready to get there. You have to think about it like this. This is a guy who, even though he played this year, Steve Sarkisian went back to Quinn Ewers, who ended up being a 7th round draft pick, right? And there's a reason for that. Whatever the reason is, there is a reason for that. And part of that is that Arch Manning just wasn't clearly better than Quinn Ewers at that stage. Now, another offseason of development, right? Knowing that the job is his, maybe that's the difference for him to break out and be the best quarterback in college football. To your point, every single tool available to him to do that. He's going to have a great team around him to support him. So he's going to be in an advantageous situation. But I feel like there are a lot of people that are looking at this as like, Arch Manning is going to be the best quarterback in college football. Arch Manning is going to be a Heisman finalist this year. And I don't think it's fair to that kid, even with the last name, to do that to him. I do think he'll probably end up being one of the top quarterbacks in the SEC or one of the top quarterbacks nationally. But I do want to wait and see a little bit before we start talking about his ability to win a Heisman Trophy.
I think we've already heard that from some of the NFL execs, right? Because
Sure.
people were already ready to pencil him in as the projected #1 draft pick. And I've seen reporting in Sports Illustrated, and it was basically just saying that, like, let's let him play a little bit. Like, this is an entirely tiny body of work. We need to see more. And I feel like college fans should take that approach too. It's going to be high expectations. They or Penn State, I think, are going to be the #1 preseason team when we get closer to the season and we get that first AP poll. So the expectations are going to be really high. They're going to be favored to beat Ohio State with the amount of returning talent that they bring, and Arch at quarterback. I think, you come in with an advantage of having been in the system, in the meetings for 2 years. People thought he was going to transfer out because he wasn't starting. I think it was a really smart decision to just stay and learn and develop and go in the weight room. And that's where I think you think, okay, his uncles, his dad, their experience in football, understanding that and wanting to play for Steve Sarkisian, be in his offense.
A kid that's not hurting for an NIL check today either. Like, that certainly helps your ability to be patient.
Agreed. And so I think that was really smart, and we'll see how that pays off. But I think that it's going to take time. It's all about reps, all about experience. You're not going to be perfect right from the jump. And we saw that last year, put in position because of Quinn Ewers' injuries. We saw athleticism. We saw that he could run better than his uncles can, right? Like, we saw, like, he's an athletic dude, but decision-making, the footwork, everything needs a little bit of work, but he's got an arm. He was a highly, highly touted recruit.
Yeah.
But I think we do need to see some time and not put too much pressure on him to be perfect right out of the gate. I do think that he will end up, in the Heisman race. I do think Texas is going to be one of the best teams in the country this year because of everything that's around him. But I don't want to put too much pressure on his shoulders right out of the gate, right? Like the preseason Heisman odds, the preseason, where he's going to be drafted in the NFL draft if he goes after this year, which he could, but he doesn't have to if he wants to do a second full year in college football. So we'll have to see, but I'm excited to see it because I think, we've talked about this, like the amount of fans in that fan base that were wearing Arch Manning jerseys, even though he wasn't starting.
Crazy.
Everywhere during tailgating. So everyone's pumped to see this, but I think it was really smart the way that he set himself up for this and not playing as a true freshman and waiting his time.
Let me ask you a question that's not Arch Manning, but it's Texas. Do you think Texas or Penn State needs to win a title more this year?
Ooh, it's a good question. I mean, we're like, I live in Big Ten country, so I'm
Yeah.
tempted to say Penn State because of James Franklin's record against the good teams and the expectation now because two other Big Ten teams and their rivals have done it. But the question always is with Texas, right? Like, okay, now
Right.
they made it
Right.
back to the playoff and they're nationally relevant, which usually means that Texas is back. But man, people were even questioning Quinn Ewers' legacy, even
Yeah.
though they took him to two semifinal games. So, man, that's a really good question. Where do you land on that? I lean
Well,
Penn State, but I think you could make the argument the other way and convince me.
it feels to me like the answer is Penn State, only because I think that if they don't win it this year, their window tightens a little bit more
Yeah.
than Texas. I feel like Texas is in a better spot even after this year to probably reload and to be a team that we feel like can win a national title. Whereas Penn State, it's like, Ohio State and Michigan the last couple of years, very veteran, and you kind of have to strike while you have that. I do think the Texas thing becomes very intriguing, though, because that was a fan base that was very proud. And then they had some lean years. And you have been to the semis and back-to-back seasons. And it might get to a point where that fan base gets back to the, like, being in the semis isn't good enough for us right now. Like, you have to win a national championship. And that's where it's so intriguing to me. So I'm excited to watch both of them, but it just popped into my head. I wanted to see where you were at.